Okay, so as you can see, I'm a bit lazy today, but that is because I want to cover a very serious topic, but I'm a bit too worn out to edit something together for this. I also believe, considering the nature of this subject, me going all out on editing would be in poor taste, and might take away from the subject matter itself. We're going to be talking about Bianca Devins and Brandon Andrew Clark, because this shines a rather nasty light on, as you saw on the thumbnail, Instagram, whose inaction for quite a long time has caused a serious amount of distress to many people who then saw the images that were seen. That said, nothing can truly take away from what was in the images, which supersedes everything else. I should now state, there are people saying Bianca Devins-ish brought it upon herself, considering the nature of some of the images she posted to her own Instagram account. Her account is still up and available, anyone can go find it if you want to. By all means, peruse the images at your leisure. I will outright say it now, it does not matter what you post, provided you are not inciting hate, encouraging pain, suffering, death, and so on. Now granted, if you are encouraging someone to hurt you through your social media posts, you need help, or needed help, and that must be acknowledged. That does not mean we then blame Bianca Devins for what Brandon Andrew Clark did, or is alleged to have done. So the distinction should be, yes, Bianca Devins did post images that does imply she asked for something which she should not have asked for. Does this justify? No. Does this mean she is responsible? No. There is no version of this where Bianca Devins is responsible. Help she needed? Yes. I will gladly, happily acknowledge that. I only say this because people have been talking about it on Twitter, and they mentioned it in my truck stream last night, and I sat back and thought, this is not a reasonable position to have. This is not a reasonable argument to make. This is wholly unacceptable. I can understand why they think it, but I don't accept it. So for the sake of context, Brandon Andrew Clark has been charged with murdering 17-year-old Bianca Devins. She was found having her throat cut in Utica, New York on Sunday morning. Earlier that day, the boyfriend shared a photo of her on Instagram and wrote, "I'm sorry, Bianca." This was uploaded to his Instagram story and even up to a Discord server. There were also additional images of Brandon Andrew Clark laying across tarpaulins that covered the deceased teenager and took selfies with her. Whether this be some kind of utterly ridiculous, ludicrous even, attempt at honouring the dead, I don't know. It is, though, beyond poor taste. It took 12 hours for Instagram to act. 12 hours is a long time on the internet. Once the image exists, you can guarantee it has been screen capped by somebody. And unlike some apps that prohibit the option to screenshot, Instagram doesn't have that. Maybe it should consider investing in it. So it took 12 hours to remove the images. It took even longer, though, to then disable Clark's account, which has caused a considerable amount of anger. I would say they shouldn't disable the account until they have all the data to give to the police, to make sure that a complete account is given to them. They would surely have that on records anyway, so disabling his account could have been done a lot sooner. The charges he currently faces, Brandon Andrew Clark that is second-degree murder, which includes a sentence of 25 years in prison if he is found to be guilty and convicted. The full context of Brandon and Bianca would be that they were seeing each other and had been for about 2 months. After meeting online, she had then gone to meet him. At the time, he had earned the family's trust and was considered a family friend. Now, according to a friend of the pair, they'd been at a concert and had gone home, where he then got angry and stabbed her because she had flirted with another man. From what I've heard from many reliable sources of people who totally have the inability to see anything rationally when their partner speaks to somebody of the opposite sex, simply saying hello to some could constitute flirting. Without the full context, all we have is flirting, because that's how insecure he is. Now, after the alleged killing, I have to say this because he's yet to be convicted. Brandon did call 911 and threatened to harm himself. When the police arrived, he then started to stab himself in the neck as a way of attempting suicide, committing Sudoku, because that's totally how one handles responsibility for their actions. You coward. He has, of course, recovered since this and summarily been charged. Rather interestingly, with the pictures that were found on Instagram, there was a sensitive content filter, but as most people who use Instagram know, that is quite easily bypassed by simply touching the screen. A spokesperson for Instagram has said, because obviously the image has been screenshotted and shared everywhere, that should versions of that image reappear on their app or site, there is a system in place that has been implemented specifically to target those photos. That will immediately remove them, and I assume hopefully flag the account of the moron that thinks it's totally okay to upload such imagery. Instagram have also said, or the spokesperson for Instagram has also said, they're going to review the hashtags and accounts that claim to share the content and will take action in line with their policies. So maybe a suspension after a tea break, coffee break, rhubarb crumble and custard break. How about nap time as well? Considering it took you 12 hours, I assume it was quite a lengthy nap. I am not going to sit here and justify why people are uploading these images that really should not have been on the internet to begin with, but at the same time, partially grateful that they are, because they put Mr. Clark in a rather difficult position, one that will hopefully lead to him spending, if he's found guilty, the rest of his life in prison. There have been a number of people on Twitter who have indicated that they reported many different accounts that had been sharing the imagery and obviously making jokes, because that's what happens when people get killed or die. Everyone makes jokes. I should make it quite clear, I am not attempting to justify it. But to those listening, when Michael Jackson died, what was the first thing you did? The majority of you made a joke. Not saying it's the right thing to do, of course it is not. There is context, yes, still not the right thing to do, I know. I'm just pointing out it is what people do. And understandably, trolls who don't have a life will do it because, again, they don't have a life. It is, of course, unacceptable. The jokes, though, are an issue for terms of service. But if the account is uploading the imagery, that's an issue. The joke is a different problem entirely. There is going to be more to this as it comes out, like Bianca's mental health issues. People have been talking about it, I noticed it, but as she had overcome that, as her family themselves indicated, and had recently graduated, I don't believe that should be the focal point. I believe a talented, innocent young life was taken by someone else. There is, of course, context, but upon hearing the context from a friend, it is not good enough reason, nor are the excuses of those who indicate her own social media presence as a, quote, e-girl. I don't care that she's an e-girl, by the very definition provided by a number of articles that mention her building a following on social media accounts, frequenting 4chan and Discord. It doesn't matter. Simply put, an innocent life was taken, so justice must be served, regardless. Anyway, I do apologise for the semi-laziness of this. My exhaustion has been a bit much, so I do apologise. I wanted to give this a bit more time. I do believe we could talk a lot more about this, but at the same time, I don't want to be putting pictures of them on the screen. I don't want to be delving too far into it, because it's a bit too dark, even by the standards of some of the topics I've covered. It's too fresh, too raw, and I simply think until a conviction has been obtained, best we can do now is wait and trust the law enforcement and investigators will be able to prove that Brandon Andrew Clark deserves life in prison.
Cthulhu.